We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Beth Joslin Roth is with us. She's with Safe Tennessee Project. We're talking about the governor's plan to make it so law-abiding citizens 21 years and older can carry a handgun without a permit in the state of Tennessee if it were to pass, which it looks like it very well might here. It would become the 17th state in the union to do so. She thinks, well, maybe not the best idea. We're going to have John Harris from the Tennessee Firearms Association on down the road here, and he'll be taking probably the other side on that, and we'll hear from him. So we're splitting up those shows, just so you know. We want to be fair on this. Let's go back to the phone lines, and we've got Jason next up. Jason, good morning. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
I wanted to contribute to what they're talking about with not having to have a permit for a handgun. I'm a gun owner. Had guns for years, but I totally disagree with not having the permit, because the permit, we don't put people in cars
Good point.
that not had training and tell them to have at it. So if you're going to have a firearm, especially a handgun, you should have training.
Yeah, you view it as a safety issue, that training makes a big difference when you own a gun.
Oh, yeah. It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
To carry a firearm around. You can't just go buy one and put it on your side, and it's not safe. It's not practical.
Gotcha. I mean, that's what he says. And he's a gun owner, and it's very rational to me. Rational. And again, what's interesting here is we're talking about this, and in the state of Tennessee, you're saying that over the last several years, it's just continually loosening. I understand the uproar among gun owners if there's some kind of legislation, perhaps that's going to place restrictions on them. This is not what it is. This is the other way. It would further loosen it, and law-abiding gun owners like Jason just now really thinks it's important that training be in place.
It is important, and again, what we hear time and time again are the people speaking out about this include responsible gun owners. They include firearm safety instructors. They include law enforcement. They include military veterans. People who understand the responsibility that goes along with being a gun owner, and the importance of having adequate training, especially if you're going to be carrying that firearm out in public.
Let's take a call from Harry and see what he thinks. Harry, good morning. What's on your mind, Harry?
Yeah, I think they ought to turn around and have background checked on each person that does try to get a permit, because who knows? They could be out there trying to get a gun permit and don't know its background, and they could be, several things,
Sure. No, I mean, now aren't background checks in place as it stands now for certain permits?
Under the current system, to obtain a permit, you do have to have a background check, but this permitless carry would eliminate
get that out of the. See, that's what I'm wondering. It's very curious to me. I know the vast majority of our viewers on MorningLine, I think, are strong advocates for the Second Amendment, and I respect them as being responsible gun owners, most of them. But people like Harry and Jason, I'm curious, is there someone out there that supports this idea of what the governor's pushing? And I'm sure there may be some. If you are, give us a call. I'd like to hear from you. But it's just responsible gun ownership would be, you want to make sure someone is schooled a bit in the basics, right? And certainly the background check,
Absolutely. And I mean, again, that's some of the things that we've heard law enforcement talk about, is the fact that now, if you see someone carrying a gun in public, you're not going to know if that person is a law-abiding citizen. You're not going to know if they've undergone a background check, if they are, have any skill carrying a weapon, or are they somebody who is a felon? Are they somebody who is prohibited from having guns? There's no way that you're going...
Oh, but you'll know after they commit a violent carjacking or rob a bank.
True, after the fact.
After the fact,
And the thing is, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things that this legislation does include is enhancements, sentence enhancements for people who steal guns out of vehicles. And as we discussed earlier, gun thefts out of cars continue to be a huge issue in our state, and one of the driving factors behind our gun violence problem. I personally am not super opposed to the idea of enhancing sentences for people who commit thefts of guns out of vehicles, but the problem with that is by the time that you're catching the person who's stolen the gun, there is a very good chance that they've already used the gun to injure or kill someone or to commit a crime with it. I would like to see us focus more on preventing the gun theft from the first place, which gets back to the idea of so many of these gun thefts are happening because people are leaving loaded, unsecured guns in plain view from outside of the car in an unlocked vehicle. And the way that the original legislation was written, the way that the new amendment is written, there is language in it that mandates how firearms are to be stored. It says specifically that a gun in a car is to be stored, is to be secured in a locked vehicle or a locked container of some sort. But there is nothing in the statute that outlines any type of consequence for somebody who doesn't do that.
So what I hear you saying is you'd like to see folks that are that irresponsible face some kind of punishment. Now, those critics of that are going to say, look, they've already been victimized by having someone break into their car and stealing a gun. And still, that is wrong, okay? They should have a reasonable expectation that no one's going to break into their car. But I'm with you. I don't have any problem. And maybe you, responsible gun owners, let me know this. If you're a meathead that leaves your gun fully loaded, exposed in an unlocked car right there on the seat and it gets stolen, should that person not face some kind of consequence? I mean, I know they've already been ripped off once, so they lost their gun. Poor baby. If it was that important to you, you shouldn't have left it out in the open. I don't get that. There should be consequences. A rational person should say that. If you're that big an idiot, leaving it out. Now, it's different if it's in a lockbox and they're in there with a screwdriver and they yank it out and then they get off with your gun. But if you're just leaving it right there on the dashboard and someone steals your gun in an unlocked car, you are the problem, okay, along with the thief. Well,
and you probably recall a couple of weeks ago, your colleague Phil Williams did a story on this. And, you know, in terms of I mean, I hear the whole, you know, the gun owner has been victimized, and yes, nobody should steal from anybody, but this feeling sorry for the irresponsible person who left a gun in an unlocked car, tell that to Kyle Yorlet's parents. Kyle Yorlet's was murdered by young people who had stolen a gun from an unlocked car. And that gun owner who made the careless and irresponsible choice to leave a loaded gun unsecured in an unlocked vehicle contributed to that young man's death. Now, again, I'm not saying obviously the responsibility falls primarily on the young people who pull the trigger, of course, but you know, we have laws around swimming pools, right? If I have a swimming pool in my backyard, I'm required to have a fence, and that is because a swimming pool is considered a nuisance. What's the term?
Well, it's a hazard. I forgot. I know what the term, but what your concern would be, like if a child were to wander into your backyard and fall into the pool,
and so they would be trespassing,
and
they shouldn't be there, but
they fall in, and you had a dangerous thing out there.
Yes.
Right. I don't see how that's any different than making sure the gun's secure in your car. I don't have a problem with you leaving the gun in your car. I understand why you do that, but make sure it's secured.
Just lock it up, because what we see and what police will tell you is these gun thefts, they're not happening when people are prying cars open with crowbars and like prying open glove boxes. They are they're checking door handles, and when they're open, they know where people leave them. And what police tell me is that often they are wedged in between the driver's seat and the console. So you don't really even have to look in the car to see the gun, and then you open the car, there it is, and then you grab the gun. And as I said, there is language in the statute that requires you to store the gun in a locked vehicle. So if you're not locking up your gun in a locked vehicle, you're breaking the law. What we get told all the time is we don't need new gun laws, we need to enforce the laws that are on the books. But how do you enforce a law when there's no consequence for breaking it?
Right.
These people are breaking this law with impunity.
Yeah, and there's no consequence at all. It's ridiculous. Let's go next to Vicky. Vicky, good morning. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, Vicky. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
I was calling about my son, and I'm against it because I don't want nothing else to happen to none of these young folks out here, and just like Daniel and Trayvon. So I'm against it. So I was calling, letting y'all know about that.
All right, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Yeah, she lost her son in a shooting, and it is against it. I guess there are people like her who are going to think that this possibly could increase the number of shootings. Her situation a little different, of course. Daniel Hambrick is her son, and that's the case involving Officer Delkey.
Sure.
But
well,
just
she brought
gun
up
violence,
Trayvon Martin,
and Trayvon
right?
Martin, right?
And I think that that's something that is important to bring up. I mean, what can happen, and I know people are going to have different opinions about George Zimmerman, and I understand that, but you know, George Zimmerman was told by law enforcement to stand down. They told him to not engage with Trayvon Martin, but George Zimmerman had a gun, had a complex that he was going to be, you know, I don't know, this wannabe law enforcement officer. And as a result of him not listening to law enforcement, and as a result of his sort of elevated idea of his role as some type of neighborhood avenger, a young man was killed. And my fear, as we were talking about before, is that, you know, people who don't have a real responsibility for being a gun owner sometimes don't understand all that it means, right? And what all that responsibility really is. And some of that includes the training that you get about when it's appropriate to interact with someone that you think may be committing a crime. Yeah. And that is concerning. And you know, she's right to bring that up.
Take a break on that note. When we come back, it's our final segment. We've got some more phone calls. Your thoughts on all of this, 737-7587. Leon, Cindy, Ronnie, and others. Stay where you are. We'll get to your calls right after this.